Glasses of various kinds, including shot glasses, flew up and knocked against each other, spilling their contents onto the fingers of the young people. Timothy Weston accepted congratulations with a wide smile. Today they poured it on him like rain. Compliments, kind words, wishes that his wallet would never run out of money, and in bed there were always hot girls. "Timothy, bro, happy birthday to you. You are the best man," said his tipsy and red-cheeked friend Ben. The guy decided to hug the birthday boy. Because of all the drinks, his legs refused to hold him, and he rather hung onto Timothy's shoulder like a dead weight. "Thanks." Timothy patted his friend on the back and sat down next to him on the couch. Timothy sipped from his glass and looked around at his friends with a satisfied expression. Timothy's 20th birthday party was in full swing. The music in the nightclub was thundering, the spotlights hitting the eyes. Everywhere you looked there was fun, glitter, smoke and splashes of expensive champagne. Go-go dancers with beautiful bodies wriggled in special open cages. They looked like exotic birds, but instead of plumage, they wore short shorts made of leather. The bartenders behind the bars were not just stirring cocktails and pouring hot drinks. They were demonstrating their skills in a continuous show. Bottles and glitter shakers were flying up now and then. This club was considered the most glamorous and luxurious in the city. It was the heart of the city's nightlife. To get inside, it was not enough to splurge on a table and be able to order something from the fabulously expensive menu. You still have to overcome 2 cordons of scowling guards, face control, dress code, and all that. Of course, for Timothy and his friends, this was not a problem. Rhonda, for example, who was sitting opposite, was the daughter of a local deputy and a charming, cute blonde with naive eyes like a child. She was on all the propaganda posters for her father. Not letting her into the club today would be like signing a death warrant for his business tomorrow. Then there was Gray. His parents were powerful entrepreneurs in the construction industry who probably built half the city and didn't disdain any methods to become local monopolists of their business. They even funded a couple of children's sports centres to look clean according to society. Gabe and Eunice were brother and sister. Their parents were too wealthy, and they had both been spoiled since childhood. Their father was the chairman of the board of directors of a banking group and just adored his offspring. All of them, sitting at the table, were chanting the name of the birthday boy and cheering carefree, while their bank accounts were full of the money thanks to the labour of their parents. As for Timothy, his father was the founder and CEO of the leading mining and metallurgical company in the country. Timothy attended a closed private school where he met Gabe and Eunice. He played soccer, badminton and horseback riding, and also tried his hand at diving and fencing. After graduation, he enrolled in the desired university. It should be given credit to Timothy, he studied diligently, digging through books with the enthusiasm of a scientist. Since childhood, his parents had provided him with everything he could wish for: the best toys, expensive gadgets, and clothes from well-known brands. On his coming of age, Timothy was given the keys to a luxury car, and on his 20th birthday, they bought their own apartment. It was a dream come true. But Timothy's life still had a significant difference from the carefree existence of his friends. Yes, now he was one of them. Young, rich, promising. He studied at the best university, constantly travelled abroad, had loving parents. He could throw a party whenever he wanted, but it wasn't always like that. He was not born into a wealthy family, but drew a lucky ticket to this life. He was like an ugly duckling who managed to become a beautiful white swan in his new family. He never told his friends about it. They wouldn't understand. Or worse, they would start putting themselves above him because of his background. Only his best friends, Gabe and Eunice, knew his secret, and most importantly, did not tell anyone. Who knows why Timothy confided in them? Maybe because they were brother and sister who always supported each other, protected and defended. And once upon a time, Timothy had a sister too. "And let's play Spin the Bottle," Rachel's voice interrupted the guy's thoughts. The girl was a dark-eyed, gorgeous brunette who took after her Arab father. She picked up one of the empty champagne bottles from the table and twirled it in her hands, looking at her friends defiantly. And then maybe hide and seek? Gabe snorted. Rachel Sunshine, we're not 10 years old anymore. If you want someone to kiss you, just ask. My lips are at your service. The guy winked at his friend under the laughter of other friends. Come on, let's play. Rachel pouted her lips, added demandingly, I want to play something funny. There's an idea. Let's play Truth or Dare, Rhonda suggested. Just do it, don't slack off, and choose interesting tasks. This time the number of those who wanted to play a fun game outweighed those who just wanted to relax. The rules of the game were simple. The player on whom the turn fell was given a choice: to truthfully answer the question he would be asked, or to perform some task. Earlier, friends could limit themselves to simple tasks like portraying an animal, dancing the dance, or singing a song loudly. But now the daring youth craved something spectacular and preferably humiliating. As a result, the questions that came out of the players were tricky, vulgar, and frank. And the tasks were even worse. Timothy, for example, already had to drink a disgusting cocktail. His friends mixed all kinds of drinks that were on the table in a glass. The wild mixture was incredibly heady. Rhonda managed to do a private lap dance for the impossibly happy Harry. And Ben would be forced to fulfill Torquil's whims as a servant until the end of the party and address him with the words, "My master." And so the lot of the game fell to Gabe. "Action!" fearlessly blurted out the guy. Timothy, who had a chance to mock his best friend, thought hard. He looked around the place, hoping to find a worthy assignment for him. Then his lips stretched into the satisfied, fed-up smile of a cat that had eaten a canary. Here it was, the task literally floating into their hands. To be more exact, the task was manoeuvring through the bodies of the guests, firmly grasping with skinny fingers the tray loaded with a new portion of drinks and snacks. The waitress who served their table turned out to be a beautiful girl. Of course, they don't hire ugly girls in such places. But this girl, whose name tag read Anna, was so pretty. She was petite with thin black hair, gathered in a high ponytail, and huge dark eyes. True, the colour in the lighting of the club could not be made out, but who cares? Timothy noticed at once how Gabe froze whenever this pretty girl approached their table. It was clear to him that his best friend had a crush on the pretty waitress, so he decided to help push him towards his goal. "Gabe, your turn is to charm our waitress," Timothy said before the girl could reach the table. "I want you to come back here with her phone number or her underwear." All the friends greeted the idea with approving oohs and laughter. Gabe hummed, but he didn't have a chance to respond to the challenge because the waitress came up to their table, immediately putting misted glasses in the centre. The young people stopped talking and laughed, looking at her. Sensing their attention, the girl looked around the guests in embarrassment. "Your drinks," she said, as if it wasn't clear. "Thank you," Torquil mumbled, glancing shyly at Gabe. "Would you like anything else?" the waitress asked, placing the last shot on the table. She straightened up, holding the tray firmly in her lowered hands. Then, with a quick movement, fixed a loose strand of pitch-black hair behind her ear. "Yes," Gabe stretched out the word, looking at the girl like a cat at sour cream. "I would like to know your phone number. Could you please give it to me?" The girls giggled, looking at the scene playing out before them. The guys grinned. Timothy leaned back on the couch, getting comfortable, as if in the front row of a movie theatre. "Sorry, there's no such thing on the menu." The girl smiled patiently, clearly used to this kind of communication with customers. "Is there a special menu for VIP guests?" "I'm ready to splurge big if you provide one," Gabe said, smiling charmingly. "Alas." The girl shrugged her shoulders and took a short step back. "If you don't need anything else, I'll come over later." Gabe jumped to his feet and ended up next to her. The guy unceremoniously grabbed the girl's arm, not letting her step back. She turned around in astonishment, staring at him. "Let go?" the girl demanded in an even tone. Gabe obeyed with a grin, throwing his hands up and showing the girl his palms. "Don't be offended. I'm being sincere," Gabe began with a tempting tone. "I really like you. I'm thinking of inviting yourself to have some fun with us. We're not bad guys. We'll drive out of town and have a pool party. Let's go. You're going to love it." "I'm allergic to chlorine," the girl reported, pressing her lips together in impatience. Her gaze slid around as if looking for support, but no one cared about the waitress. "No problem. We have a jacuzzi," Gabe insisted. "Thanks for the offer, but I'm working," Anna said firmly. "That's okay. I'm willing to buy your time," the guy smiled. "How much is your shift worth? Let someone else fill in, and I'll take you away for the rest of the night." "You must be confusing a nightclub with a man club," the waitress suddenly hissed, narrowing her eyes. "That's not the way it's done here. I could call security. Come on, stop flirting and playing hard to get," Gabe urged, getting angry with every minute. He was generally not a bad guy, but this evening he had had too much to drink and did not want to listen to the waitress's refusal in front of his friends. Suddenly, he leaned over to her and whispered something into her ear. What he said was not audible to the audience. However, his hand at some point rested on the girl's thigh, which was encased in a short uniform skirt. He barely had time to stroke it before events took an abrupt turn. The girl flared up so much that her indignation was visible even in the darkness of the club. She sharply pushed Gabe away from herself. The tray fell out of her hands, falling to the floor with a clatter. Gabe even had no time to realize that the waitress's palm had smashed into his cheek. The force of the blow was such that it would surely leave a memorable mark on his cheek with the imprint of her fingers. "Are you crazy?" exclaimed Gabe, looking at the girl dumbfounded. "But what did you think? That if you can afford a bottle of expensive champagne, I will bow down before you?" the girl blustered. "I have some bad news for you. Not everything in the world can be bought." The girl no longer looked like a charming doll. A fearsome fury stood before them, her eyes scattering lightning bolts. "What's gotten into you, little girl?" Ben, who was only amused by what was going on, interjected. "Don't you know that you should treat us properly? We're all good guys here. Don't insult us if you value this place. Otherwise, you won't be the one calling security, but we will." "I'm not insulting you." The girl proudly straightened her back, raising her nose and holding it to her chest like a shield. "I'm stating the facts. All people have personal boundaries, regardless of who they work for. If you can't keep your distance, hire a manners tutor. You can afford it, and buy some politeness in change." "Who do you think you are?" snorted Timothy, getting up from his seat and approaching the brazen waitress. "You think that if your face is pretty, you can wave your arms and open your mouth?" He decided to stand up for Gabe, cutting off the sassy girl. His head was buzzing with the alcoholic mixture he had drunk, and anger was boiling in his chest. "No, seriously, how dare an ordinary waitress talk to them like that? Didn't they teach you a simple rule when they hired you?" he continued, hovering over the girl, whose fingers turned white as she gripped the black tray. "The customer is always right. Plain and simple, isn't it? It's easy to remember, even to you. And if the customer is like us, you have to smile and indulge his whims. Do you know how much money we leave this place every weekend? We throw your annual salary in here and hope the service is up to par. And what are you doing? You're biting the hand that feeds you. So now, come and apologize profusely to my best friend. If you're lucky, we won't destroy your life." "No," the girl muttered emphatically, but her lips treacherously trembled. "It's up to him to apologize for the indecent offer. "Don't you realize what's going on?" Timothy was furious, looking at the brazen waitress with an alcoholic gaze. "It's my birthday, darling. As a good party host, I want my friends to be happy, and you're trying to ruin it. Let me explain it again. The difference between our social statuses is a gulf, and the sooner you realize it and become docile, the sooner you learn to accept the handouts that fate gives you. Then life will become easier and better. So go and apologize before I insist you do it on your knees. Then I'll forget the whole thing and even leave you a decent tip to spend on a new blouse or lipstick. Did you get it? Let's go." He forcefully grabbed the waitress by the wrist, yanking her toward Gabe. But the girl didn't put up with what was happening. Anna, whose eyes were already filling with tears, grabbed the first drink that came to hand from the table. In the next second, she threw its contents into Timothy's face. "What a wild wretch you are," growled Timothy, wiping the sticky drink from his face with disgust and anger. "You're gonna regret this, you fool." The next events unfolded rapidly. The rich friends demanded, in an ultimatum, for the dismissal of the damsel, who didn't know how to communicate with customers. "She's new here." The nightclub administrator tried to mumble an apology. "She has only been working for a couple of weeks." "You mean she had been working? Because as of this second, she can get the hell out of here. Otherwise, you're going to have a huge hole in your budget and big trouble. Timothy, you know me. If I see her face here next weekend, your place will be razed to the ground." The manager also joined the conflict. In the end, the young people's wish was granted. They were given apologies, but it was not a proud waitress, but the manager of the nightclub. It was not known how real Timothy's threats were, but no one wanted to check, and it was much easier to dismiss the new waitress than to make trouble for themselves every week. So, the next morning, the poor waitress came to the office of the manager, which was located in the club. "It's your own fault, Anna." The man looked glumly at the waitress, handing over the money for the shifts worked, and letting the employee go wherever she wanted. "Didn't you know where you were going to work? Yes, some customers look at club, bar or restaurant workers as sexual objects. So what? You could have put up with it, smiled a couple of times and forgotten. You'd get a tip the size of a month's wages. And you're a fool." "I don't want their money." The girl scowled, taking her money. "And my name is Anna Maria. How many times can I say it? Anna Maria, not Anna." She placed a shiny silver-white badge on the manager's desk with her name on it, which was annoying to her eyes. When Anna Maria was given a uniform, they shrugged their shoulders, saying that her name was rare and they wouldn't order a new badge for her. However, it's a good thing that they didn't. Her time with the club was short-lived. Leaving the building, the girl took a deep breath and turned around. Where was she going to go now? It would seem that all roads were open before the young, beautiful Anna Maria, but alas, reality was far from fairy tales. For graduates of the orphanage, many paths were closed. Anna Maria, sighing heavily, wandered towards the bus stop. She should go to the supermarket and buy some groceries. The refrigerator was empty. Then she needed to prepare for the seminar on Monday and, of course, look for a new job for the weekend. Anna Maria turned 19 a month ago. The girl had just graduated from the orphanage, where she had lived since she was 5 years old. When she left the gates of the orphanage, she had no fear. On the contrary, a warm and joyful anticipation of change settled in her chest. She felt like a bird released from a cage. Unfortunately, no one told her that freedom is full of dangers. There, she had to build a nest, look for food, and fight for life, fearing to encounter birds or prey with large claws. Anna Maria got into the orphanage with her older brother. Their mother grew up in the orphanage herself, and she had no relatives. The father abandoned her when she was pregnant with their second child and disappeared without a trace. The single mother had no job, only social payments for the children. There were no means for a normal life, and even less for the maintenance of small children. And frankly, the mother had no desire to raise them. More importantly, this woman enjoyed drinking in the company of her buddies. The children were growing up in a world filled with the smell of booze and tobacco, the inarticulate shouts of drunken adults and swearing. Under these conditions, brother and sister became the closest people to each other in the whole world, protecting and preserving their fragile world from the harmful influence of adults. Left to themselves, they learned to survive. Even though Anna Maria's brother was a year older, he felt responsible for his sister as a man. Once, he stood up for Anna Maria when her mother's drinking buddy, a typical representative of marginalized society, tried to hit the girl. Anna Maria couldn't remember what caused the aggression of the strange man. Only the slap, which was intended for the little girl, whipped into the face of the older brother. The little, furious boy pounced on the offender. Of course, it didn't get him anywhere. How old was the brother then? 5 years old? But Anna Maria could remember for the rest of her life how he stood up for her. Her brother used to build huts for them under the table, throwing thick blankets on top. There they hid from the terrible, unjust world. He made up stories and told them to Anna Maria. And once he even composed a special poem to comfort his sister, who was crying from another offence. A short set of rhyming lines that Anna Maria had memorized. She hid it deep in her heart and repeated it like a prayer in especially difficult moments. Even as an adult, it seemed to her that it was a child's prayer protecting her. It is not known what would have happened to the children or how their fate would have turned out if the brother and sister had remained living in that apartment. But one day, strict people from the guardianship service came to their house. Maybe the neighbours complained, or maybe someone else gave the homeless alms. But both children were taken away from their mother, depriving her of her parental rights. At first the brother and sister were together, but then their world once again shook, collapsing into dust. To increase their chances of being adopted, the guardianship decided to separate them. To the horror of the frightened children, one cloudy day they were sent to different orphanages, and all contact between them was lost. Anna Maria did not know what had happened to her brother, but she hoped that his fate was better than hers. She was taken in by a foster family, only to experience betrayal once again. She was eventually returned to the orphanage, where the walls and surroundings disgusted her. From a young age, the children were taught to work independently and live according to a strict schedule, much like in a prison. They were responsible for cleaning not only their rooms but the entire building, washing floors and windows, doing laundry, removing snow from the yard in winter, and falling leaves in autumn. However, the real problem was the methods of education and punishment, which were both exotic and diverse. It was possible to get a portion of the punishment for any mistake. For example, those who did not sleep during quiet hours were beaten with a wet towel. During the summer, they could be whipped with nettles and locked up in a gloomy shed on the orphanage's grounds. Especially unruly children who refused to obey the teachers were put in a distant wing for a month, where they were deprived of any contact with the outside world. Besides, the children in the orphanage were diverse, with hazing and power struggles between different groups being common. Therefore, when Anna Maria left the orphanage, she did not shed a single tear. Fortunately, the orphanage provided educational assistance to its pupils and sent many of them to different educational institutions. Anna Maria chose to study at the veterinary school because she had a love for animals that surpassed her love for people. It's difficult to believe, but Anna Maria had a sympathetic and open character. She just did not allow others to bully her, as she had a strong will that was forged in the harsh conditions of the orphanage. That was why she refused to tolerate the bullying of wealthy guys who had influential connections. After a bad conversation with the manager at the nightclub, she bought groceries and arrived at her grey apartment building. It was in a state of disrepair, but the government stubbornly turned a blind eye to it. It was so cold in the winter that one had to sleep in a down jacket. Since graduation, Anna Maria had been waiting in line for housing, just like any other orphan. However, no one seemed to be rushing to give her a roof over her head. When they finally did, the apartment was located in an old house that was barely holding up. Anna Maria said with objective reasons why the apartment was unsuitable. The house was in deplorable condition. The apartment was located under the roof, and dark mould had already gathered in the corners, creating a musty smell inside. The roof was obviously leaking, and during the rain everything poured directly into the apartment, causing the old floral wallpaper to peel away from the walls. "You don't look a gift horse in the mouth," said a formidable woman from the housing distribution service, and her bushy eyebrows met over the bridge of her nose when she looked at the orphan. "Sign the paper and be glad to have a roof over your head. Some people live on the streets." Biting her lip with resentment and realizing that she had been deceived, Anna Maria signed the necessary documents. She simply couldn't give up the damaged apartment. A new apartment would have to wait until old age. The girl, who had just graduated from the orphanage, did not fully understand how life was organized outside. She did not understand that it was necessary to fight injustice and go to court, for example. After all, many years ago, she was locked in a barn in the winter. What was a leaky roof to her? Nothing. After eating dinner and reading lectures, Anna Maria sat down in a chair and looked through job vacancies. Of course, Anna Maria, having entered the veterinary school, dreamed of immediately working in some veterinary clinic, even as a janitor or running small errands. However, the girl constantly faced rejection. She often encountered slanted views and stereotypes. Usually, employers who learned about her past immediately refused to hire her, promising to call back with an artificial smile. But Anna Maria's phone remained silent. The same situation occurred in a clothing store. Was it such a big problem for a lively and quick girl to hang a dress on hangers and take it places? But the manager cancelled Anna Maria's candidacy without explanation. It was also the same in the beauty salon, where the job required answering the phone and smiling from the reception desk. It was also the same in the children's playroom. Anna Maria could see in her employers' eyes what they were thinking as they turned her down. Everyone thought that orphans had a crippled psyche, that they were conflict-prone, stole, cheated and bought nothing but problems and no profit. It was as if the girl had not been brought up in an orphanage, but had done time in a maximum security prison. Getting into the elite club was a stroke of luck. The pay was great and the tips the guests left were even better. The only reason she was hired was that she arrived on time. That night the club was packed with guests. Some popular DJ had arrived. Having looked at the beautiful girl with a picky eye, she was not asked for details of her biography. Anna Maria was given a uniform and told to help other waiters. 10 sweats descended from the girl that night, but she was assigned a place and even paid cash immediately. It was a real victory, and now everything was ruined. Of course, Anna Maria regretted that she had missed such a chance. She should have apologized to those assholes, because now she would have to eat potatoes all day because she would run out of money soon. The phone in Anna Maria's hands suddenly came to life, startling the girl. She looked at the screen. The name of her classmate and only friend, Molly, popped up. "Hi, Molly," she said to her friend. "Hello, dear," chirped Molly on the other end. "Are you busy today?" "I'm free, and I'll be free for a long time yet." Anna Maria sighed sadly. "I'm unemployed again." The girl shared her bad news with her friend in a nutshell. Molly replied thoughtfully. "But I guess now you can say that you have experience working at one of the most prestigious places in the city, right?" "What are you getting at?" Anna Maria asked, picking at a hole in the old chair with her finger. "My acquaintance works as an administrator in a restaurant," Molly informed her. "He offered me a position as a weekend waitress, but I turned it down. Maybe we should offer your candidacy. The shifts are short, you only have to work Saturday and Sunday. They're busy days, so more staff is needed. It's a nice place. where all the bigwigs of the city gather. Oh, my favourite audience. Anna Maria stretched sarcastically, but then thought that she should give it a try. The friends didn't put the matter on hold for long. The same day, Molly introduced Anna Maria to the administrator, Hank. She advertised Anna Maria's experience, the way an experienced salesman tries to sell someone a vacuum cleaner. She worked in the best nightclub in the city, she convinced the doubtful acquaintance. However, Molly remained silent about the fact that Anna Maria only worked there for less than a month. She can handle your customers. In the end, poor Hank was worn down under Molly's pressure, and Anna Maria was told to come the following Saturday, but as an intern for now. Our internships are paid, Hank hastened to please the girl, and we provide meals. After 2 weeks, diligent and hard-working Anna Maria was made a full-fledged waiter. She liked the work, the team was great, and everyone helped each other. She could easily combine her 2 working days with her studies, and the tips here were just as good as in the nightclub. Anna Maria had already decided that her stars had finally aligned, but fate had other plans for her. Timothy held back a yawn, hiding it behind a polite smile. Professionally, he had learned to feign interest in his interlocutors, especially his father's colleagues and partners, on whom a successful deal depended. And right now, they were having a friendly dinner in the company of unusually nerdy investors. Timothy was a good son, but he decided not to follow in his father's footsteps and chose the profession of a surgeon. Suddenly, his phone rang. The ringtone sounded like angelic singing to the guy, so it saved him from the protracted conversation, at least for a while. "Oh, sorry," he apologized, getting up from his seat and making a disappointed face. "Important call." He stepped away from the table where his father and his partner, with his son, were sitting and took the call. "Hello!" The man stretched out his greeting, smiling widely. "Hello, Timothy, how's it going?" Gabe answered him. "Not very funny," Timothy responded. "Dad made me come to a dinner with his partner, so you just gave me a break from the economics lecture." "You'll owe me one," his friend caught on to his advantage. "By the way, we're going to the club tonight. Want to come?" Timothy made his way to the bar and sat down on a high wooden stool. He signalled to the waiter, asking for a clear gin on the rocks. Without a drink, he couldn't tolerate this dinner. "I guess," Timothy replied uncertainly. He was still annoyed by the nightclub, where he'd gotten into a scuffle with an insolent waitress. There was something about her that irritated him too much, but he couldn't figure out what. He couldn't forget the girl's arrogant face with strobe lights running across it, and he seemed to be alone in his indignation. Gabe, one of the main characters in the play, forgot about the incident the very next morning. Maybe because of his easygoing nature, or maybe he really didn't care about the girl's behaviour. But Timothy couldn't stop his irritation, even at the mention of the unfortunate place. He knew the girl had been fired, but his soul would not rest. "Are you still freaking out about your birthday?" The best friend sensed Timothy's mood. "Forget it, bro. To be honest, I liked it." "Are you crazy?" Timothy snorted, grinning, and stirred the ice in his glass. "I didn't know your fetish was when somebody wipes their feet on you and punches you in the face." "Go to hell," replied the friend without rancor. "That waitress is just a girl with character. I love that kind of girl. It's a shame she got fired. I was drunk. She started blowing me off. She hurt my male pride. So I said all sorts of things to her." Timothy wrinkled his nose. "What kind of nonsense are you talking about, Gabe?" grumbled Timothy, feeling that his friend had betrayed him. "You forgot some girlish novel in your room, and you've picked up hearsay from there. Say it's true, or we'll go look for the reason for your softness at the therapist." "You're wicked, Timothy." Gabe waved away his friend's sarcasm languidly. "In general, we are waiting for you, if you survive your dinner." The guy dropped the call, putting the phone down on the bar countertop. He looked longingly at the remaining drinks in his glass, realizing that a couple more sips and he'd have to go back to his father and his guests. Suddenly, a woman's voice caught his attention and made him turn his head to the left. There was a waitress taking drinks from the bar, lining up cups, a small teapot and a French press on a tray. A smile never left her face. The girl was chirping and flirting with the bartender. Suddenly, Timothy recognized her and froze in shock, because it was the same waitress from the club. "Thank you," sang out the girl, having coped with the ordered drinks, and she left the bar. Timothy sat frozen like that, like a statue, staring at the girl's back while burning with curiosity. What's her name? Anna, I think. Well, Timothy grinned to himself. The evening doesn't promise to be boring anymore. Timothy's spirits perked up. What was it if not fate? The high powers were out for revenge. After all, the very Providence had brought them both to the walls of this place, and he had no intention of missing out. He paid for his unfinished drink and headed towards the main hall. There he leaned against one of the columns, standing in its shadow like a predator. All the tables were occupied. Waiters, like industrious bees in black bearded uniforms, were scurrying from table to table. They took away dirty dishes, discreetly took used napkins from the table, put new dishes and drinks in front of the guests. Anna Maria was standing next to one of the tables, smiling at the guests, either listening to their wishes or swooning from compliments. From Timothy's place, it was impossible to hear what three guys and a young waitress were talking about. However, the girl blushed and at one point laughed merrily. "Look at her," Timothy remarked irritably. "Now she's not fighting." Noticing that the girl finally stopped chatting with the guys and walked briskly towards the small corridor for the staff, Timothy shadowed her. A plan had not yet matured in his mind. What exactly he would do when he caught her eye? Something made him think that even a simple reminder of himself would be enough. "Do you think you could run away and find a place in the sun?" "No, baby. There's no burrow where I can't get you. You humiliated me once, so reap the rewards for the rest of your life." But no sooner had he rounded the corner than he heard a child crying. Convulsive sobs filled with pain and resentment. And right after that, there was the waitress's voice, which now sounded incredibly soft and caring. "Come on, there's no need to cry," she begged the child. Timothy cautiously peered out into the corridor. It was darker there than in the main hall, but the guy saw the girl was kneeling in front of the boy. He looked to be about 5 or 6 years old. "It hurts," the boy reported, smearing tears and snot all over his face. Timothy noticed that the kid had a gash on his knee. He must have run away from his parents, who were eating at a restaurant, and fallen. Anna Maria quickly took out a fresh napkin from her pocket, carefully wiping the kid's face. "It'll go away soon. And you know what? Let me tell you a magic poem. It takes away pain and fear." "Is it sure it will help?" The child hesitated. "Well," said the waitress mysteriously, "it may not work right away, but if you're a brave boy and stop crying, it will work faster. Magic loves the brave." "I'll try," the boy promised, sobbing through a reddened nose. "And how do you know the magic verse?" The girl hesitated for a moment as if confused. Then a gentle smile lit up her face. "It was told to me by a brave and little knight. Even though he was just a boy, he always protected those who were in trouble. And this poem will surely help you." Then the girl leaned over and whispered something that made Timothy's blood freeze in his veins. She was telling him something, not just a poem. It was a familiar poem, a comforting poem that he, Timothy, had invented a long time ago. So long ago, as if it were in a past life, covered with a layer of dust. And now this centuries-old dust was blown away, dispersing it around. And Timothy stopped breathing, because the dust was getting into his lungs, stinging his eyes, and making tears appear. Timothy couldn't believe his ears. It was the verse he had told his sister Anna Maria when they were hiding in the blanket house, or when she was afraid to fall asleep at night, or later when, once they were in the orphanage, they used it to take away their fear of the unknown. Timothy watched mesmerized as the waitress stood up and took the little boy's hand. He had stopped crying altogether. Only a red knee with an abrasion and slightly swollen eyes reminded him of the recent trouble. "Now let's go find your mum, okay?" she said. "She must be worried, right?" "She thinks I'm in the playroom," the boy sighed sadly, "and I ran away. She's going to scold me." "She won't. I'll explain everything to her." The waitress hastened to calm the anxiety of the little boy, and then she looked up. Their gazes with Timothy crossed. At first, recognition and consternation lit up in her eyes, but those emotions were instantly replaced by a frown of indignation. "I hope you're not following me," the girl said, blushing with indignation. "Otherwise I'll go to the proper place and seek an injunction against approaching me." The waitress swiftly rushed past the guy, dragging the boy in tow. Timothy, on the other hand, looked dumbfounded. He stared at her with his mouth ajar, as if he were facing a new wonder of the world that he had accidentally met in his life. Is he drunk or what? A squeamish thought flashed through the waitress's mind. Despite the outward bravado, Anna Maria did not like the unexpected meeting with the rich guy. What a misfortune to get a job at the very restaurant where this rascal is dining. She did not know what else to expect from him. Anna Maria clenched the child's hand harder in hers, leading the boy away. She knew where his family was sitting. A noisy company was celebrating someone's anniversary. "Wait!" Timothy dazedly called out to the girl, as if to come out of a trance. "Wait! I have to ask you a question. Just wait!" She felt his hand come down on her shoulder from behind. The girl immediately jerked forward, letting the guy's fingers scoop up nothing but air. Turning around sharply, she gave him an angry look. "Don't you dare touch me," Anna Maria hissed. "I'll call security. It's a decent place here. There's a camera. I'll tell them you've been harassing me." "You misunderstood me." "Have a nice day," muttered the girl, quickly winding her way into the main hall. Timothy, unable to stand it, rushed after her. At that moment, another waitress, the one who had served their table, was returning from the hall. "Anna Maria, you don't waste time, do you? Already found yourself a boyfriend?" she cheerfully threw, passing by the colleague and throwing a look at the boy who clung to Anna Maria's hand. Timothy froze in place. His eyes widened and his heart skipped a beat to start pumping blood with renewed vigour. The air was getting short. Anna Maria. She called her Anna Maria, he thought in shock. Meanwhile, Anna Maria smiled at the other waitress. "Yes, you know, I was desperate to find a Prince Charming. I thought it would be easier to raise him myself." The second waitress laughed merrily, appreciating the joke. Her head was turned toward Anna Maria as she walked away. She didn't look ahead. Therefore, she didn't notice an obstacle in the form of a petrified Timothy and flew into him. The tray with dirty plates slammed into the guest's chest. One of the plates slipped, falling and breaking into small white shards. The rest of the dishes miraculously survived. "Oh, my goodness," the waitress exclaimed fearfully. "I'm sorry, I didn't see you." Timothy, however, did not even hear her lamentations. He fell weightily to his knees, as if his legs could no longer hold his body weight. "What's wrong with you? Are you feeling ill? Did I hit you?" the waitress asked him incomprehensibly. "Your jacket is a little dirty. Let me wash it." The guy wasn't thinking about the greasy stain on his expensive jacket that someone's leftovers had left. He was thinking about the fact that he had banged his left knee, and it ached again, reminding him of his soccer injury. The pain throbbed in him like that little boy must have. And in his head, at that second, the waitress's voice rang out with that poem again. Timothy finally came to his senses, shaking off the obsession. He had finally found his sister after all these years. He had found her when he had given up hope long ago and dropped his hands. The guy brushed the waitress's hands away from him, jumping up from the floor. "Sorry," he mumbled, not looking in the direction of the confused woman. He ran down the hall looking around. Where was she? He must explain everything to her. But suddenly another thought came to his mind. No, first he must make sure it was her, that this was no joke of evil fate and coincidence. Maybe his sister told their poem to this waitress, or maybe he didn't make this poem up himself, but heard it in the yard, memorized it to comfort his crying little sister. "Son," Timothy's father called him. "Where have you been? I called you and then I started looking for you. We were just leaving." Timothy looked back at his dad with some surprise. He had already forgotten that he had not come here alone, and he had some responsibilities to his invited guests. Go, Dad, I'll be right back," Timothy muttered, still looking around the tables. I need to find a girl." His gaze ran from one waitress to another. Where is she? Maybe on the second floor of the restaurant. "Whatever it is, it can wait." Mr. Weston pronounced it with a dash of seriousness in his voice. "You'll chase the girls some other time. It's critical for us to make an impression now, Timothy. A great contract is at stake. How about not to ruin it?" "You don't understand, Dad." The heir tried to explain himself. "You're the one who doesn't understand." The father raised his voice, but then sighed, calming down. "Listen, Timothy, let's postpone your super important search operation until next time. I don't ask you for anything that often." There was truth in that. Father and mother showered their son with all the blessings, never denying him anything, and never asking for anything in return. So, to turn his back on his family now was wrong at the very least. "Okay," Timothy exhaled in a shaky voice, still scanning the surrounding space with such tension in his gaze that his eyes began to hurt. "That's good." The father patted his son on the shoulder. "Let's go. Everyone's waiting for us." Timothy realized he was doing something wrong when he left to follow his father. But with that, he felt a prick of relief. He was still afraid to believe in possible happiness. But he could also not forget the look that the girl gave him in their last meeting. It was full of contempt, disgust, and even hatred. Of course, she had a reason for that reaction. Timothy was being a moral freak, intoxicated with power, stirred by the feeling that was stirring in the stranger's breast. He had allowed himself such low acts, for which he now berated himself. But it was useless to regret. What had been done could not be undone. How am I supposed to show up in front of her? "Look, Anna Maria, look what your brother's become. He is rich financially, but poor spiritually." The guy was ashamed. He spent the rest of the evening with his family, but his thoughts were far away, and when Gabe started calling him on the phone, trying to pull him to the nightclub, he ignored his friend. Later, lying in bed, he could not sleep a wink. Now he understood why the girl annoyed him so much. It wasn't irritation. It was painful memories of the past, like an organism's reaction to a trigger. Her hair was the same shade as his own, and her skin was as pale as if they'd both been created from the same piece of marble. Why hadn't he seen that before? And her big eyes were brown, like good whiskey, like strong tea. They were his little sister's eyes. He had so often wiped the tears from her cheeks, and now he was trying to make her cry himself. Memories began to creep into his mind along with the pre-dawn fog, sticky and cold. He remembered how he and Anna Maria had been brought to the orphanage, how they had held hands, afraid to uncross their fingers. They had been put in separate rooms then, and he had snuck into her room at night. In the morning, the teacher found them sleeping in the same bed, and then they were separated. He was taken to another orphanage, and Anna Maria, he didn't know what happened to her. The man who accompanied Timothy said his sister would be adopted soon. Maybe he lied to comfort him. Maybe he was telling the truth. Timothy didn't stay long in the orphanage as well. Fate had brought him together with the Mr. Weston and his wife. They visited the orphanage and brought some goodies and gifts for the little ones as charity on the same day when Timothy had just arrived there. The Westons had no children of their own, so they tried to give a piece of their care to those who needed it. The headmistress brought the Westons to her office, and the newcomer was led there as well. When the spouses saw the boy, something inside them trembled. They had previously discussed the idea of taking an orphan from the orphanage, but it did not go further than talk. And here Timothy was, pale, sad, and beautiful, like a porcelain doll. Mrs. Weston's heart shrank. Later, she said that it was maternal feelings that made her wake up when she saw the blue eyes of a dark-haired boy. Soon, Timothy was living in a luxurious mansion, which was located outside the city, surrounded by fruit trees and rose bushes. Later, he tried to look for his sister. Of course, he was too young, but a plan matured in his mind. He decided that if he would be a good son for his parents, become obedient, sweet and loved, they would fulfill his precious wish, find his sister and take her to their house, especially since there were so many rooms. So, a year later, when his parents asked their son what he wanted for his birthday, he spoke for the first time about Anna Maria. "I'm ready to eat less," the boy seriously and fervently promised his foster parents. "And we can sleep in the same room. You know, she's minimal and thin, like a bird. She won't take up much space. And she has a very funny laugh. If you tickle her, she grunts like a piglet. You will definitely like her." The Westons were so touched by the child's words that they promised to help him. The spouses, indeed, turned to the appropriate authorities. Only the girl had already been adopted. So, if she already has a family, should they interfere in the child's life? But Timothy couldn't calm down. At the age of 16, he came to the Department of Guardianship and Custody. He was told nothing about Anna Maria's fate. Then, in an emotional outburst, he had a big fight with a woman from the guardianship service. He even broke something in her office. Lucky for him, she didn't call the police. "You had no right to separate us," shouted Timothy at the time. "This is inhuman and surely illegal." The woman then poured tea for the boy, sat him in an armchair and tried to explain why the children were being separated. "First, one child has a much better chance of finding a new family than two," she said to Timothy in a soft tone. "As practice shows, children who stay close to each other cannot adapt to a new life or accept a new family. They cling to each other, fixate on themselves. This does not end well. Recently, a woman took in a brother and sister. Their adaptation was very difficult. The children turned each other against the new mum. At the same time, when one child stayed at home and the second child went away, for example, to the hospital or camp, there was peace and quiet in the family. But when they met again, the problems began. Screaming, fights and tantrums. Do you know how it ended? They both went back to the orphanage. She couldn't handle it, and I can't blame her for that." Timothy listened to the woman, not knowing what to say. It seemed to him that none of this was about him and Anna Maria. They wouldn't fight in their new family, no. But the woman continued, "You're in a new family now, a beautiful one at that. Surely your sister has acquired parents too. Would you really be willing to ruin it all? If the two of you had stayed together, who knows if you would have gained families or stayed that way?" Timothy's chest tightened. During this time, he had genuinely grown to love his parents. They had given him the love and care he could never have dreamed of. Of course, he wouldn't want to lose them. Meanwhile, memories of his sister faded with time, seeming like something distant from a past life. They were coloured in grey tones, laced with piercing sadness. And then Timothy gave up. He decided for himself that Anna Maria, too, had found her place. A family where she was loved, where she had the dog or cat she had always dreamed of. Anna Maria loved animals and never passed by a yard kitten or puppy on the street. Timothy decided she was happy. And then a girl bursts into his life, She was like a comet that drew the starry sky, attracting his attention. Everything else faded away. The next morning Timothy went to the restaurant, torturing himself with thoughts and conjectures. He could no longer wait. His whole body vibrated, and his fingers shook when he went inside and asked the bartender to call the receptionist. Just yesterday, the fancy restaurant had been packed to the brim with guests. Now it was quiet on a Monday morning, with neutral music more suited to a masseur's room to relax clients. A red-headed waitress was watching the only guest in the place without much enthusiasm, an elderly man in an expensive suit. He was finishing his English breakfast, drinking with black tea. "Hello, may I help you?" Timothy was snapped out of his distracted thoughts by the administrator. "I'm looking for Anna Maria," said the young man, tapping his fingers nervously on the counter. "She only works weekends," the woman informed, eyeing the young and handsome man with interest. "On weekdays she studies." "Maybe you can give me her phone number?" Timothy tried a charming smile, but he feared that the smile came out more anxious than friendly. "I'm uncertain if I can," the woman said, averting her eyes. "We can't give out personal information about employees." "Where does she study, at least?" "I don't know," the blonde girl shrugged. "Anna Maria, the new girl?" The bartender suddenly joined the conversation, wiping a glass with a clean towel. "She's studying to be a veterinarian, except where I have no idea." Well, that was something. All that was left was to go around to all the veterinary schools in the city, Timothy thought sarcastically. However, he nodded to the bartender with gratitude and turned back to the blonde, making another attempt to play on her pity. "It's important for me to meet her. Literally, it's a matter of life and death," insisted the guy, looking at the girl pleadingly. She bit her lip and averted her gaze, but Timothy felt a glimmer of hope that she was about to break under his onslaught. "Let's do it this way. I'll call and tell her that you're looking for her," she suggested at last. "She can come here if she's free, or she'll let me leave her phone number, or I'll just put you on the phone, okay?" "Okay," Timothy nodded, feeling excitement dry out his throat, and turned to the bartender. "Can I get a glass of water?" The administrator pulled out her cell phone and immediately dialed the right number. "What should I say to her?" she asked, raising her beautiful eyebrows. "Who's looking for her?" "Tell her that her brother Timothy is looking for her," he replied, hesitating for a moment. The administrator's eyes rounded. She decided that she was dealing with an obsessive fan or, in the extreme case, one of the visitors. But she definitely wouldn't refuse to help if she knew he was a brother. But she had no time to voice her thoughts. At the other end there was, "Hello?" followed by a yawn. "Anna Maria, hello. It's Nellie. Did I wake you up? I'm sorry. It's just that there's a young man in the restaurant right now and he's looking for you. He says he's your brother, Timothy." "Huh? What? Yes, of course." The girl handed the receiver to Timothy, who had frozen in front of her. He still couldn't take a sip of water from the glass placed in front of him, and now the words were coursing down his throat like thorn branches. "Yes, hello, Anna Maria," he said, feeling the improbability of what was happening, as if he were a movie character in a ridiculous set. There was silence on the other end. The guy even took the receiver away from his ear to see if the girl had dropped the call, but the seconds were ticking away. "Timothy?" Finally a woman's voice sounded, broken and unsure. "Anna Maria, I'm at the restaurant," the guy began, still feeling the improbability of what was happening. "I'm coming right now. You just wait. You wait, Timothy, I'll come," blurted out the girl, interrupting him. Timothy didn't have time to answer anything, as the conversation was interrupted. Instead of the girl's voice, there were short beeps. He returned the phone to the administrator, mumbling words of gratitude. She looked at the guy, with even more interest than before. The girl returned to her workplace, but she kept glancing at the guy now and then. Timothy finally drained a glass of cool water. He didn't eat breakfast, but the thought of food caused not appetite, but unpleasant feelings of nausea. He probably couldn't even eat a bite in this situation. Seconds turned into minutes. They stretched like sweet bubble gum, stretching to infinity. Finally, Anna Maria appeared in the restaurant. Barely had their eyes met as the colour fell from her face. Anna Maria's brown eyes filled with tears. "If this is a joke," she whispered as she looked at Timothy's face, "it's too cruel even for you." Timothy took a deep breath, as if he intended to leap from the cliff into the icy and dark water of the ocean. Only then did he say resolutely, "Anna Maria, I swear to you, it's me, Timothy." She shook her head as if the guy's words had turned into small bees with sharp stings. The girl hurried to chase them away before they touched her. "Anna Maria." Timothy took a step towards the girl, holding out his hand. "I'll tell you everything." She looked up into his face again, frowning her eyebrows tensely. Her eyes searched his face for familiar features. And they found them. Anna Maria, who had grown up amidst the cruelty of orphanage children, couldn't bring herself to reach out her hand in response. She still wasn't sure if it wasn't a coincidence, a cruel prank concocted by the rich kids. However, he had the same blue eyes and hair, and he had the tiny mole next to his eyebrow. It was the same as Timothy's. It almost blended in with his eyebrow. If you didn't look closely, you wouldn't notice it, but Anna Maria knew where to look. "It can't be," the girl whispered, putting her palms to her trembling lips. "Anna Maria," gently and pleadingly, the guy called out, and then suddenly whispered the familiar lines from the poem. It was too much for Anna Maria. The next second, with a desperate sob, she threw herself into her brother's arms. She squeezed herself in his strong arms, small and fragile, as if she had turned into a little girl of 3 years old again. The little girl whose older brother had tried to braid her pigtail ineptly. The little girl with whom they had shared one piece of bread in half. The girl sobbed on her brother's chest, and her shoulders shook with sobs. She expected him to laugh at such a naive fool, but there was no laughter. Instead she heard, "I've been looking for you for so long, Anna Maria. I swear, I've been looking for you. I'm sorry I could never find you, my little sister." "But you found me in the end," she muttered, unable to utter more. "Fate itself brought us together," Timothy replied. "I apologize for being such a cruel moron to you." But Anna Maria was ready to forgive him everything, as long as he stayed near. Later, they were sitting on a bench in the park near the restaurant, because they both needed fresh air. They were silent for a long time. Then they started talking loudly and quickly, interrupting each other. They laughed, wiping away tears of happiness, then began to sob with relief. People passing by looked at them with suspicion and quickened their steps, taking their eyes away from the strange couple. But Timothy and Anna Maria didn't care what people thought of them. For them, the world around had been erased, and only their own faces remained. "My parents have been looking for you, Anna Maria, I swear," Timothy said, "but they were told you were already in a new family." The girl nodded sadly. "That's the way it was. I was taken into foster care almost as soon as I was transferred to a new orphanage. Later, they brought me back. That orphanage was gone, so they sent me to the new one. It was worse." "You mean you were returned?" Timothy frowned sternly, looking at his little sister, who had to endure the betrayal of adults so often. Anna Maria looked at the pigeons that began to gather around them. Out of habit, the birds were hoping that those sitting on the bench would have some bread or a handful of seeds to share. "It was a fairly mature and well-to-do family," she began to recall. "They didn't have children, but it didn't work out for them. Something with their health, probably. Later I realised that with my help, they just wanted to keep their marriage alive. If they had had a child together, their love would rise from the ruins. Everything was wonderful at first. I was just caught up in a fairy tale. They toyed with me like an expensive toy, competing for my favour. They gave me presents, dressed me up in an uncomfortable dress with ruffles and bows. I never said I didn't like the outfits, so as not to offend them. I almost choked once, I swear. They put a high-collar dress on me with 1,000,000 buttons in the back. It squeezed my throat so tight I turned blue. The girl jumped with laughter, remembering this fact of her biography. Timothy, on the other hand, grew more and more gloomy. His sister's words did not seem funny to him. They reeked of longing and resentment. But every day the atmosphere in the family was getting worse and worse, Anna Maria continued after a short pause. The foster parents were constantly quarrelling. They would yell at each other for long periods of time in the next room, simply forgetting that I existed. Sometimes they even forgot that I needed to eat. And then they got divorced. Neither of them wanted the responsibility of an adopted daughter alone. After much arguing, they gave me back. Timothy swallowed. He stared at his sister's profile, not understanding. How could she have been abandoned? How on earth could adults decide to care for a child and then throw her away like a defective item that wasn't useful? Then I went to a new orphanage. The girl began to make invisible patterns on the wooden surface of the bench with her finger. When another family wanted to see me, I threw a tantrum. I was angry that they looked at me like a thing, like a dog that they wanted to take me into the family, but then they could throw me out on the street. So I stayed there until graduation. And then some arrogant jerk got in a fight with me at a nightclub. The girl raised her head and looked up into her brother's face. On her face, in the cut of accusatory words, shone a smile, filled to the brim with happiness. Timothy did not know what to say to his sister. Instead of words, he hugged her skinny shoulders tightly again. "Everything will be different now, Anna Maria. I'll definitely take care of you," he promised the girl fervently. It had been 3 years since Timothy and Anna Maria had met. Timothy stood in the cafe watching Strictly as Gabe and Torquil hung a bright garland with the inscription, "Congratulations." "It's sagging," Timothy remarked. "You should raise it higher." "Oh, come on," Torquil exclaimed, looking at his picky friend. "She won't even notice your garland." "Why is that?" took offence at the party organiser. "Because I'll be here. I'm the most handsome man here. Anna Maria won't look anywhere else. Only at me." Torquil winked and earned several dissatisfied looks at once. First from Timothy, who jealously watched his sister's entourage. This was especially true of the suitors that were flocking around the Anna Maria. Secondly from Eunice, who had become the best friend for Anna Maria. And thirdly from Gabe. He had been dating Anna Maria for a year, but they hadn't told Timothy about their relationship yet. Gabe didn't like to keep such information from his best friend, but he liked the idea of receiving a blow from him even less. Young people did not immediately move to a new level of relationships. Although Gabe, from the very beginning, felt sympathy for the beautiful girl, he began their acquaintances with apologies. Timothy's parents welcomed Anna Maria into their family with such cordiality, as if they had once lost their own daughter. Mrs. Weston began to devote almost all her spare time to Anna Maria, surrounding her with maternal care, and the girl felt like a part of the family. As for Timothy, he had been truly happy recently. It was as if a missing puzzle piece had been inserted into his heart. And today he decided to arrange a surprise party for Anna Maria in honour of her graduation from the veterinarian school. Now Anna Maria could use her real gift to treat lame dogs and parrots with colds. Mr. Weston had already arranged for her to work at a great veterinary clinic. Timothy rented a small cosy cafe, called Close Friends, and used his comrades as free labour to give the place a festive atmosphere. Timothy's fiancée, Holly, stood guard, peering into the road to see if Anna Maria's figure was walking there. "She's coming!" shrieked the girl suddenly, running into the hall. Excitedly whispering, the young people left balloons and posters, throwing themselves in a scattering. Some hid under the table, while others hid behind the column. They left behind only an empty hall. Anna Maria arrived with her close friend Molly, who also graduated from the veterinary school. They froze at the entrance, looking around in amazement. The cafe was absolutely empty and quiet, as if even the staff had evaporated. "And where is everyone?" Molly asked aloud. A lonely yellow ball rolled past the girls like a tumbleweed across the desert. At the same instant, Anna Maria and Molly jumped, shrieking, as the walls of the cafe were filled with pops. Multicoloured confetti flew through the air, and with it came shouts. "Congratulations!" the friends yelled. "Surprise!" The young woman accepted congratulations from the friends, laughing and crying with joy. Anna Maria caught a glance at Timothy, realizing perfectly well who had started it all. Brother and sister met eyes, and Anna Maria thanked him with a sincere smile. Sometimes she anxiously wondered if it would all be taken away from her again. But Timothy was doing everything to make those unpleasant thoughts leave her. Gabe, her secret boyfriend, jumped up to her. In front of everyone, he wrapped her in a hug and kissed her on the lips. Everyone hooted. "I thought today was a good chance to make us known," he whispered in the ear of an astonished Anna Maria. There were plenty of witnesses around. "Timothy definitely won't kill us." "Well, no," muttered Timothy, already addressing what had happened. "I can't believe it. Anna Maria? Of all the guys in the world, you chose that ridiculous jerk." He was answered by cheerful laughter, and Anna Maria felt her heart beating fast in her chest, which was bursting with excitement. She was finally